Hello, security pros, and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on today's ESA webinar, The State of Storage in Surveillance, from Camera to Edge to Cloud, How Architectures and Analytics are Driving Smart Video Storage. During this webinar, Western Digital expert Marc Tanguay will give you an inside look at the technology that is changing the video data industry and learn how storage is becoming smarter and more purpose-built for intelligent surveillance. I'm Hannah Boone, ESA's Marketing and Communications Manager, and I'm excited to lead this webinar today. Before we dive in, I'd like to provide some tips for those of you joining us on your first ESA webinar. Welcome. You will be muted for the duration of this session, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. If a question or comment comes to mind at any point during today's session, click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and I'll ensure that we save some time for your questions with our expert today. We'll also be recording this webinar so you can re-watch the on-demand session and share it with your colleagues. Tomorrow, you'll receive an email thanking you for your attendance today with a link to the recording. If your company is a member of ESA, we thank you and we hope you're utilizing your benefits to save, expand your team, and get connected to the ESA community. If you're not yet a member of the Electronic Security Association, check us out. ESA is the largest and longest standing association serving the pro-installed electronic security and life safety industry. Our members are integrators, dealers, monitoring centers, and even manufacturers and service providers in the space. You'd be surprised at the power an ESA membership holds for your company. Get a feel for all the ESA benefits, including savings on business insurance, training, customized in-house onboarding and professional development programs, peer networking groups, government advocacy programs, certifications that satisfy state licensing, and in some cases are also alternatives to NICET at esaweb.org. One of our membership specialists would be happy to walk you through these benefits and the application process. We at ESA realize that your time is valuable and we appreciate you spending some of that time with us today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Marc Tanguay. He is a storage industry veteran, managing products and lines of business for leaders such as EMC, Seagate, Toshiba, and Gateway. Marc's product experience fuses understanding of surveillance, intrusion, and access control with deep knowledge of data storage. Marc is the Senior Marketing Manager for Western Digital, overseeing smart video surveillance storage products. So without further ado, Marc, you can take it away from here.
Thank you, Hannah. Thanks for the introduction. And I'd like to thank the ESA for hosting this event. Again, I'm Marc Tanguay. At Western Digital, I manage storage products for the video surveillance market segment. The products that I work with are WD Purple hard disk drives for recorders, WD Purple Pro HDDs for storage servers, and Purple micro SD cards for on-camera recording. As Hannah mentioned, I'm a veteran in server and storage technology. I've worked in product management and product marketing for industry-leading companies. Over the past several years, I've really seen video surveillance be the most used application that takes up storage capacity and storage space. All of the market research that we're seeing forecasts video surveillance storage to grow by petabytes and even exabytes over the coming years. So the amount of video stored continues to grow really exponentially. Over the past decade, I've worked with storage solutions for video surveillance, and we've really seen camera technology change dramatically over the past few years, especially with higher camera resolutions and the emergence of analytics as well. What we're seeing in the industry is really a change in the amount of video data. And we've also seen dramatic changes in where that information and data is being stored, whether it's being stored on-prem, at the edge, or in the cloud. And we've all heard about the emergence of video surveillance as a service. You may be working with end customers that are subscribed to monthly VSaaS services as well. That's also changing where information is flowing and moving. Storage products are having to adapt to work with these new architectures as well. So we're going to talk a lot about that and also dive into how we're changing and designing our storage products to really work and assist that flow, especially for video data and video information, as it's very different than storing other different types of data like documents and files. So today we're going to take a closer look at all those technology advancements and see how video storage has been keeping pace to meet those challenges. So on today's agenda, we'll take a look at the changing technology. So camera resolutions have certainly been increasing, moving up. It's very difficult to even find an HD, a 720p camera any longer, except for maybe some residential home use applications. But all the research we've seen shows that customers have been adopting 4K camera resolutions faster than anticipated and expected. That larger resolution means more video data flowing from the camera to the recorder and onto storage hard drives or onto SD cards as well. So we'll look at the changing nature of camera resolutions and its impact on storage. We'll also dive deep into artificial intelligence, AI video analytics, which have really become commonplace, just beyond standard line crossing event, motion detection event information. They're becoming much more sophisticated and much more commonplace for things like object detection. And it's really designed to take and move video surveillance to becoming a reactive after the event has occurred into a much more instantaneous and real-time technology. So we'll take a look at the technology and the impact that it's having on storage. We'll also look at the different architectures. So in the cloud that we talked about, and cloud is not just one storage solution. Cloud is really all about making your data and video data available wherever and whenever your customers need it. And so it's more about providing data, and it's less about having your data just stored at a data center for back-end access. So we'll talk about the different cloud architectures and how it really makes the storage points not that significant to the customer. They just need to see their video data wherever it's coming from, whether it's coming from the edge, the cloud, or hybrid architectures. And then we'll spend a lot of time talking about storage technologies and how we at Western Digital, as well as our competitors, have been designing video surveillance specific storage technologies for micro SD cards and for hard disk drives, how we've been designing it to work specifically for video surveillance, which is a very high write intensive environment. And it's all about protecting video information, reducing dropped frames so you have smooth playback and you've preserved all the information. And we're now able to accept not only the video streams, but also the analytic information that's coming in and preserve that data in its entirety. So a lot to talk about today. We'll jump right into it. So at Western Digital, we call video surveillance smart video now. We call it smart because it's a new world, really, with information and data that's embedded into the video. AI, or artificial intelligence video analytics, occur everywhere now, from the camera to recorders to analytics gateways and backend systems that are up in the cloud. AI is really seeing information and video that helps our world to be more secure, more safe, and even more productive. We'll talk about applications in things like transportation, for traffic, and with factories for quality control and quality assurance. So it's not just about surveillance and security. There are also other benefits as well, and new customer opportunities. It really wasn't that many years ago that video surveillance was highly reactive, meaning that after an event had occurred on a CCTV system, you played back the video from a recorder and took a look at what had already happened in the past. And as long as you captured the event, that was job done. And you see that exact scenario played out on crime drama TV shows all the time. It's very reactive. An event happens, and FBI or CSI, they go in and watch the video or pull the drive. Used to be pulling the tape. But it wasn't the most intelligent process to find evidence. I do have to add in and say that my kids were very disappointed when I told them that enhanced video command wasn't a real thing. It's not something that actually occurs. You can only work with the quality, the focus, and the resolution of the video that you started with. Enhancing a blurred or pixelated image and magically enhancing it by saying the command enhance video isn't really real today. Maybe in the future, but you work with the quality of the information and the video that you have and you've taken, unlike the Hollywood portrayal of it. Luckily, camera resolutions are increasing at a rapid pace, and so the quality and clarity of the video information is much greater than it had been in the past. So that change is really occurring now. Video systems are becoming smarter. We're seeing video turn into real-time information with alerts and notifications. Just looking personally, my home cameras will let me know if a package has been delivered to my front door or if my dog is in the backyard. I'm alerted instantly on my mobile phone. I can pull up the live view and interact with the camera with two-way audio or to ensure that the footage is being recorded. That's for home residential. And then for commercial systems, they're becoming even more sophisticated in their analytics and pattern matching. For example, in retail stores, we see customers detecting if shoppers are pulling a product off of the shelf and then running a multi-step video intelligence algorithm that'll look and see once that item has been pulled off the shelf, if it's being put back onto the shelf or if it's potentially being pocketed, and it can change the alerts and the information that's being sent to the physical security team. So it's really all about making video systems smarter and more proactive instead of reactive and after the fact. So with that set up, let's go ahead and dive into the technology, starting with the changing video workloads. And we'll dive deeper into the cameras and the analytics portion as well. But this will give you kind of a good idea, an overview of really the explosion of data and the information and what the sources are, what's causing it, where's that data coming from. When we look at camera resolutions on the left-hand side here, as I mentioned, we're seeing much higher than anticipated adoption of 4K video cameras. We're also seeing some introductions of 8K cameras already starting to hit the market as well. I think the average camera is still at full HD or 1080p, moving up to 5 megapixel into 4K today. But it's been a really quick transition from HD 720p camera streams. And from a data perspective, the general rule of thumb is that when you move up in the steps from HD to full HD to 4K to 8K, typically you double the amount of data that has to be stored. When you look at it, from the charts, you can actually have a much greater, up to 7 times of the video information as you move through the steps. And also sensors have greater color depths as well. So just a lot more information. But what's offsetting that is some of the new compression technologies like H.265 and H.265 plus. So the general rule of thumb is just doubling or so of the data as you move up in the steps. So that's driving a lot of the storage capacities much higher. If you were in the past installing a 2 terabyte drive into an NVR recorder, you should plan ahead and just think that that's going to be a 4 terabyte or greater drive as your customers transition to higher capacity, higher resolution cameras. And it's not just the main camera stream as well that's sending more data. So in the past, there was really just the primary and the secondary auxiliary stream. And that stream that secondary stream might have been very low quality, might have been at 240p, meant for monitoring on the mobile. As the sensors on cameras continue to increase in their capabilities, we've seen that secondary or auxiliary video stream really increase in resolution. sometimes even matching the primary. So to a 1080 or 4K stream. And if not, it's usually just one step down. So we're definitely seeing full HD or greater auxiliary and secondary video streams coming. So that's increasing the amount of video data as well that's coming from the camera. Another source is picture files. And you might think pictures or thumbnail generation, which is part of the traffic, but the biggest use of picture files is actually by analytic systems. And so while the main primary and secondary auxiliary video streams are coming off of the camera and being recorded or monitored, really a lot of the analytics operations happen on individual picture frames and the changes of that from frame to frame to frame. So that's what analytic systems will typically look for while they're trying to pattern match their analytics. It'll come from a third stream, which is in the form of pictures. And then also we'll see a lot of metadata information coming from the camera that can be everything from environmental information to analytic information to disk health or drive health information, camera health information, temperatures as well. So a lot of information that's just used for camera or system management as well. So again, a lot of information coming from resolution, also from new streams. And then we'll take a closer look at analytics and this new flow of data and information coming from analytics. As mentioned, on camera or camera side analytics, a lot of changes that have happened there that just go beyond line crossing motion events, which have continued to get more and more sophisticated. But we've seen, especially during the age of COVID now, seen a lot of things like people counting, people in region counting events that are oftentimes camera or recorder side analytics. As I mentioned, we've really advanced in object recognition. So for people, pets, packages, vehicles, the most cameras that are advanced now or recorders that support analytics will be able to go beyond just the standard motion events and actually be able to make sense of what object is actually in frame and in the picture. And we've also seen several new analytics, usually camera models that are created specifically for a function like thermal mapping, like heat maps, for example. So a lot of changes, and these cameras, they send a lot more data that are continuously streaming to the recorders that end up on hard drive storage. And we'll also take a look at some advanced analytics. So this is really, can be wide range of information and data that really wasn't previously available. So it's making sense of video data to solve problems like analyzing traffic and traffic patterns. And what these deep learning analytics will do is mesh in lots of different variables, like was there an NFL football game that let out, at the time that a city traffic, actually increased, and really try to make sense of these patterns over time, and then project that information out and to predict, what, for example, traffic would be like on a particular day. And taking that example, these systems need a couple of things. They need a lot of data, and they need a lot of history. And so they need repetition to really learn, to be able to match the patterns and to form the hypothesis. They really have to have a lot of information that are coming in or from the past that can be analyzed. So really build strong cases for retaining video as much as possible, because these newer analytics can go back and operate and calculate on past events, and it can all build the informational database and build its intelligence, and that'll help its accuracy, for the analytics that they're predicting. So you look at an application like trying to predict the traffic patterns on the first day of school. it wouldn't make much sense to, to go back and look at the prior week traffic information with only, 5 days when people were on holiday and school and outside of school, and then try to apply that to what traffic is going to be like on the first day of school. You'd have to look, back to more regular patterns in the past. And so that's what that advanced analytics, they really need lots and lots of video data from the past to be able to predict what will happen in the future. So let's dive just a little bit deeper into the different technologies that we talked about. So again, with camera technologies, we've seen higher resolution and also the codecs increasing that will kind of compress and minimize that the amount of the video data. We talked about the emergence of 4K cameras, 8 megapixels, and even moving up and beyond that now. We've also seen changes to the types and functions of cameras. So lots of 360 dome cameras that are being installed, and the technology behind that today, those really are two separate 180-degree, full field sensors. And so a 360 camera will actually send off roughly double the information of a single 1080p camera. So when you're looking at calculations for sizing for customers as well, for storage, you do need to take that into account, that typically 360 cameras are double the information that a single wide angle field of view camera would be. We've also started to see the emergence of some automated PTZ cameras that are doing object tracking. If you were at ISC West trade show earlier in the year, you saw a lot of telematics information that would follow people in city views, so follow their path as they cross the streets, and would try to learn traffic patterns at different times of the days. See that with vehicles as well, like where they would typically do U-turns and their velocities and headings. So all designed to really let city planners and traffic planners try to analyze and learn and how to really change the flow of traffic to optimize things, reduce the traffic flows. We did talk about analytics with motion counting, object recognition, thermal and mapping. So really becoming commonplace and standard now. And we also did walk through the different types of streams that are coming off the camera, not just the primary, any longer. So a lot of changes in the camera technologies, and it's impacting storage. And again, the main takeaway is as customers move up in resolutions and as they adopt analytics, you're at least doubling the data, if not more, from the amount that needs to be stored. Looking at the different analytics and what's driving the need for analytics, a lot of it is about security and making sure that we're looking at crowds and looking for objects like in airports, bags that have been left unattended and behind. But a lot of the newer technologies are working on other problem solving. So things like in the right-hand side with factories. Western Digital just participated in a project where we installed micro SD cards into cameras. Those cameras had really little or nothing to do with the security at the factory locations. It was those cameras were all installed for quality control. They would monitor different parts of the assembly process. And for this customer, their belief is that by recording and applying their own custom analytics, they're going to be able to have a higher quality finished good product that comes off the line. And they'll be able to go back if they're storing and retaining that video. If they see, for example, that there was an error in installation, they might be able to apply that to predictive failure in the field, down the road. So their customer experience may be dramatically improved over time. But really putting in thousands of cameras to watch every step of the manufacturing process into packaging, into the finished goods. So a lot of different uses and applications for video cameras, above and beyond just safety and security. We did talk about transportation as well, and this would also apply to onboard transportation for applications like smart cars. Smart cars are going to, for self-driving, are going to have a lot of learning, and that's going to require a lot of storage of video that's continuous, really looking and monitoring not only in the car, the vehicle telematics and information, but also in the environment, what was happening around it, what other vehicles were there, were the other vehicles speeding, and just as the whole self-driving process improves, it's going to take a lot of storage and a lot of time and a lot of analysis of the video that's happening on board on the cars. And you'll see that as well on board public transportation, school buses, trains, planes, and automobiles as well. So a lot of information that will analyze not only the environment and the situation, but we see with onboard bus, for example, camera feeds that can look at drivers and catch if the driver is yawning, and then proactively send a message or alarm to that driver so that they can pull over or do whatever they need to do, so they're not putting the passengers in a safety situation. So a lot of great analytics that can improve productivity in factories and out in public transportation, as well as just improving general safety and security day to day. All right, let's transition and talk a little bit about architecture. So we've all been hearing so much about the cloud, and there is no one size fits all cloud. The cloud isn't one architecture and one single thing. So we'll take a look first on the left-hand side here about what the cloud is for home and residential. We have a camera to cloud application. Most Resi cameras, as you all know, are really designed to either store information on the camera, and when the customer goes to play it back through their mobile app or through their web browser, they are either accessing that data that's stored on the camera or it's stored in the cloud. The motion events are. And that information and data, if it's not stored in the cloud, if it's stored on camera, will either be in the form of a micro SD card or an embedded flash chip. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, but one of the main things that we see from a failure rate is that customers, they purchase cameras for their home, and then they go out and they buy a micro SD card. It might be from a reputable company like a SanDisk or another company, and they think, hey, it's a great name, it's a great product. I'll go ahead and purchase that card because it's less expensive, and they install that card into the camera, and it's not designed for video surveillance. We'll talk a little bit about what has changed, what's different for a surveillance grade micro SD card, similar to hard disk drive as well. But what that if that customer installs a standard retail off the shelf card, the lifespan may be very short, depending on the amount of recording activity they had. It could be months or even under a year before that card reaches a failure point. And we'll talk about how micro SD cards designed for surveillance can last for years, if not longer. In the commercial side, the cloud, we hear a lot, and the first thought about cloud and surveillance is camera to cloud. And there are definitely solutions that are growing and gaining in momentum. Those camera solutions typically will have a micro SD card or embedded flash storage as well. But oftentimes what we'll see from the video surveillance as a service or VSaaS providers is a hybrid cloud storage architecture. And what that's doing is storing camera footage, video footage from anywhere from 4 up to dozens of cameras, and storing it on a local hard drive onto a gateway or to an NVR recorder. And then that the motion events would be sent up to the cloud either on demand or on times, and it can be scheduled to go up to the cloud at times where bandwidth is not an issue. So you're not competing with business bandwidth during normal business operations. So the company's employees are able to be productive without utilizing a lot of the bandwidth through the broadband. And then we'll also see cloud connected video management systems from the large surveillance providers. And they'll typically call those Federated Plus, where they will be operating and storing information and storage servers on-premise locally, but they'll be cloud connected for control and for also playback across remote sites and different locations. So just because you hear of the cloud and a VSaaS, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's reducing the amount of storage or the amount of storage points. And it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is just automatically being stored up into the cloud. Depending on the architectures, depending on things like customer bandwidth, there are different architectures and different solutions that will meet their needs better moving forward. And then let's talk about the impact on on-premise. So a lot of the discussion as well is, with the emergence of cloud, what's happening to recorders, to NVRs and DVRs? Is that market going to go away? Is that going to happen overnight? And the short answer is that the forecasts for recorders are for growth. We see that growing slow and steady, but still growing over the next handful of years. I think most of the leading forecasters and market research companies are showing that same thing. And what is the reason why? Well, first is because by far the vast majority of your customers are using NVRs and DVRs today. It takes a lot to rip and replace, as you know, so that's one reason. But there are also other reasons as well. Retention, different requirements. There might be regulatory requirements for different industries, like growth ops or medical industries, government agencies as well that require a certain amount, banking and financial, that require that information be stored on premise. Cloud can be stored as a backup point as well, but there's just a lot of reasons why you would want to continue, that customer would want to continue with storing data and video data locally. And then a lot of it is also to do with the bandwidth. Storing or uploading continuously from multiple dozens of cameras can really saturate a company's pipeline and can really impact other lines of business operations as well. So even hybrid cloud operations, are one way to alleviate that while still working with the cloud, but also to alleviate that bandwidth, and it can send data up overnight and in off hours as well. So that's a little bit about the architecture, and so that technology meshed with the architecture is really having a great impact on smart video storage. And let's take a look at what I mean by that. So when we look at the different types of smart video storage that we just discussed, micro SD cards for on-camera, mainstream hard disk drives for recorders and gateways, and then advanced hard disk drives that are really meant for servers and these advanced analytics systems. What are the primary differences between them? First, on the micro SD cards, of course, that's meant for on-camera recording or cam to cloud applications. The storage capacities are really range from about 32 gigs up to a terabyte. Today, we're starting to see some directions into 1.5 terabyte and 2 terabyte micro SD cards come to market. Typically, those cards are warranted for a 3-year period. And the last line on here is something that really want everyone to take away from this presentation. If you take away nothing else, not all micro SD cards are created equally. So like we talked about, if you just go down to Best Buy and you even buy a high endurance grade micro SD card and plug it into the camera, that card labeled high endurance it's really high endurance for someone who's like a video content creator. And their workday, it's still typically an 8 hour, up to 8 hour recording day, where they're recording onto their SLR camera or other video devices. And it's really not designed and meant for a 24/7 operation. And we'll talk a little bit about that technology and show how micro SD cards that are really meant for video surveillance applications, they use a measurement called PE cycles, or program erase cycles. We'll dive in a little deeper into that. And that's one thing that you want to look for on the spec sheet of the card that you're purchasing for your customers, is how many PE cycles does that card have. That will tell you exactly when the start date of that card is, and when the planned end date of that card will be. So you can really plan the life cycle for that card down to the month typically. And then on hard disk drives, mainstream drives are built for the recorders. They'll typically range from 1 to 8 terabytes of capacity. They'll typically have a 3-year warranty. And then we look at the amount of workload. So it's the amount of data that's being sent in from all camera sources. And on mainstream HDD for recorders, it'll typically be 180 terabytes per year for the workload. And workload means video data coming in and video data going out. Advanced hard disk drives will increase that warranty up to 5 years, up to 550 terabytes per year of workload. So for really high intensive environments, that advanced HDD might be a better choice. And then also capacity on the advanced side. So you'll see them going up to 22 terabytes today. So we'll definitely touch on WD's new 22 terabyte drive. So in smart video storage, what makes it built for video? How is a drive designed to work in a video surveillance environment? The first thing is video surveillance, as we all know, it's 24/7 continuous. There's no downtime. Cameras don't get time off. They don't get breaks. Neither do the recorders. Neither do the hard disk drives that the video is stored on. So it's 24/7 operation. And then the second thing is that hard disk drives and micro SD cards are tuned and optimized for video. When you think about video, it's a different workload than it is for someone who's working on a desktop computer, occasionally opening up a document and the saving of that file. It's intermittent. Video is constant and it's very predictable, but it's very intensive. So we have these high definition video streams coming in, being written to the drive. The goal of video is to preserve that video data without frame drops. We've all had customers who go to play back an event, and they've had dropped frames. The video may be stuttering or jittery, and or you may have lost that critical second of video data. And that's the worst possible thing. So that's really what video drives are designed to do, is protect the integrity of that video stream operating 24/7, high write environment. So they have durability and endurance. And then we'll touch on how WD and also some of our competitors are really creating intelligent storage for video and analytics that are optimizing the way that the drives ingest and store the data, and to ensure that video is stored accurately and completely. Standard drives and micro SD cards are not designed for this. So they're really meant for workday operation, infrequent read and writes, limited lifespans, and they're designed more for mixed workloads, documents and files, for example. So we still have customers all the time that will install a standard desktop grade hard disk drive. They look at the brand on the outside of the drive and they say it must be good. It comes from Western Digital or one of our competitors, and that drive is good. It's good quality for the job that it was designed and built for. And so in a desktop environment, it'll work great. But you put it into a video environment, and that drive will be challenged to keep up with the incoming video, and it'll be challenged because it's operating 24/7. So the lifespan and longevity may not be what it would be for a specifically designed smart video drive. In addition to designed for this 24/7 continuous operation, I mentioned that drives themselves have intelligence built in. So at Western Digital, what do we do? That means that we've created a firmware that actually detects the incoming video and picture streams, and it's monitoring the performance. So it's monitoring the completion of this reads and writes, working closely in hand with the recorders that the drives are installed in. The video information that's coming in from the camera to the recorders and then onto the drive, it can be stored and buffered in what we call our cache memory. And what we'll do in the cache memory is we'll group that information together. So we'll take the primary video stream that's just coming constantly. It's like a pipeline. And we'll write that to the fastest performing parts of the disk in the drive. The information that's coming more infrequently, maybe like the metadata information or text files, we'll group that together in cache, and then we'll write that to a different portion of the hard disk. And so what it's doing is really making sure that's optimized. We're protecting the video streams, and while we're also preserving that metadata and information. And we're working this all at the same time, simultaneously in parallel. But it's because we've tuned the drive and the firmware and the intelligence to work in this video environment. So very different in how a standard desktop class hard drive would perform and handle that information coming in. So we'll give you a checklist, things to look for when your customers are interested in hard disk drive technology for their recorders or for their servers. So the capacities span again from 1 to 22 terabytes. That really the whole purpose of a smart video hard disk drive is to, again, preserve that video data. And by doing so, it has to be designed for 24/7 continuous operation. Yeah, your customers can save a few dollars by purchasing a different class of hard drives. But ultimately, if it's important that they preserve that data and the information, it's important that they purchase a smart video class, surveillance class hard disk drive, whether it's from Western Digital or one of our competitors. Make sure that it's a smart video hard drive. And as well, that the warranty periods will line up with your projects. So typically your projects may be 3 to 5 year amortization deployments. So the warranty of your drives, you'll notice that they're 3 and 5 years. So they'll match up and can align with your projects as well. Another aspect is that drive has been tested and qualified. So it's been plug tested into NVRs and recording systems by the OEM manufacturers. And also at Western Digital, I'm here in Irvine, California, we have a very large lab where we have hundreds of recorders and cameras that are constantly operating 24/7. So we're testing and qualifying and making adjustments to our hard drive firmware as well over time. So it's important that that drive be tested and qualified. And the last point on here, this is one that we probably don't have enough time to go into great length on today, but CMR recording technology, it's conventional magnetic recording. And basically, it's the type of recording technology on discs, on the discs and the platters that is really tuned for the best performance in a video environment, this high-write video environment that we've talked about. There are other technologies that can help you get to higher capacity points, namely SMR technology or shingled magnetic recording technology. And that technology, while it does help you store more, in a video environment, it may have performance concerns and trying to keep up with all of this video information that we've discussed and reviewed. So again, that's just a quick checklist of things to look for when working with hard disk drives. And on micro SD cards, again, it's all about endurance. And the endurance rating that we ask you to look at on a spec sheet is the PE, or program erase cycles. If you think of micro SD and flash storage like a massive grid, and the information comes in and it gets written into each box of the grid or cell, basically, that's what will happen. The whole grid will fill up and the cells will fill up with information. And then when that's complete, when it's written from cell 0 down to the final cell, we'll call that one PE cycle. And what we'll do then is erase the entire grid, and we'll start again with cell 0 and start writing through. So each cycle that goes through, that's one program erase cycle. And for video grade, we recommend at least 500 PE cycles. And what you'll see on some retail cards is as few as 10 PE cycles. So the lifespan and life cycle really won't be that long. So not designed for video cameras and this high write environment. So again, with micro SD cards, you'll see 32 gigs up to terabyte capacities. You'll see higher capacities coming soon as well. They are designed for 24/7 continuous operation. Not only that high endurance, but also designed for temperature and humidity. When you think about these micro SD cards, not only needing to support these high writes, but they're also installed into cameras that are typically in commercial settings installed outdoors through winters and through the high heat that we've just had this summertime as well. So designed for high temperature and high humidity conditions. And you look for the manufacturer to provide a health monitor or for proactive storage management. So you can look at and access how much life is really available on that card still without having to necessarily down that camera. So with that, we'll take a minute just to show you a quick video on why high endurance is important in micro SD cards. All right, so that'll give you an idea that not only you'll see the markings on a micro SD card, and a lot of it have to do with performance for writing, but you won't see the PE cycle endurance rating printed on the card. So definitely take a look at the spec sheet or on the packaging for micro SD cards. I'll just quickly, so we talked about the market, we talked about the new technology coming in cameras and video analytics, talked a little bit about architectures, and we talked about some of the design for video surveillance requirements and storage. We'll quickly give you just an overview of WD Purple. So WD Purple has products from camera to edge to cloud, from micro SD cards to WD Purple, HDD for recorders and gateways, to the Purple Pro drive that is meant for servers and advanced analytics systems. They meet all the specs that we discussed as being important today. and widely available through distribution or through partnership through the channel and with Western Digital ourselves. We do also want to mention our latest product that was just introduced just about 2 months ago, and it's the WD Purple Pro 22 terabyte hard disk drive. So it is the highest capacity hard disk drive in the smart video market for surveillance applications. It's really has a lot of technology packed in to the drive, but it's allowed us to ship and make available the highest capacity drive that's available today using several different advanced technologies as well. And it's designed specifically for video surveillance. So the firmware that we talked about, the reliability that we talked about for 24/7 operation, really a marvel, and it is available in the channel now. So a lot of you may ask, why would I ever need, or what could I ever do with a 22 terabyte hard disk drive? And when we look at it compared to the competition, which their highest capacity drive is a 20 terabyte drive, you can add up to 6 additional 4K cameras, or increase your days of storage, or increase your recording activity. And if you look across it just with a 22 terabyte capacity drive, you could store video data from up to 64 1080p cameras running at 30 frames per second and have over 55 plus days of storage onto that high capacity drive. So we'll see that going into advanced analytics and servers, but also into some customers, into the recorders that have a need for lots of days of retention, for example, or for to support lots of high capacity, high resolution cameras as well. So when you're looking at your manufacturer for smart video surveillance storage, we'll like to leave you with 3 reasons why customers work with WD Purple. It's really our reliability. So we have a 3-year or 5-year limited warranty on the HDD side, 3 years on micro SD. We support the workload and today's video workload that we had reviewed, and it's really designed for that continuous 24/7 operation. WD has been working in this industry, in this segment of surveillance for 10 years now, and we have more than 230 exabytes that have been deployed. It's trusted by our leading customers. And really, WD is innovating and investing in this space with our all-frame technology, which is designed to preserve video information, reduce the frame drops, so that when you have an incident or event and you go to playback, that video is whole and conclusive. And we also have advanced technologies where we work with our recorder companies to monitor the health of the hard disk drive and really proactively notify information before a drive would actually fail. So several reasons why our customers choose to work with WD. And we'll also point you to some tools that can help out. We have a mobile calculator that you can use for both HDD storage space based on the camera's resolution, frames per second, days, and information. So this is a tool that's available on the web or available for download on your mobile device, on the App Store or on Google Play. And it can also help you look at HDD storage capacity needs, as well as storage capacities for micro SD cards, along with storage lifecycle estimators like we talked about with the PE cycles. So some tools and information to help you there. And what we now like to do is go ahead and turn it over to back to Hannah for questions and answers.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we had a few questions come through. All right, it looks like the first one we have is here. Is the micro SD technology really different for video surveillance cards than it is for high endurance cards?
Yeah, good question. And can't tell you how often we hear that from customers, that they installed a retail grade, even if it said high endurance on it. They might have gone to a retail store and purchased it, and thought that, hey, it's a good name from a good company, so it's got to work well in my home residential camera and my commercial camera, and it really is different. We talked about the technology being different, designed for these high program erase cycles. out of the factories, we use the best quality memory in surveillance grade retail. So it'll give you the best, the most PE cycles, and it really has to do with the technology as it comes out of the factory. We grade the quality of that solid state storage, and we'll put that specific select best yielding highest quality memory into the surveillance grade storage micro SD cards. So yeah, it absolutely is different under the cover.
Great. Another question that we have is, you talked about write performance. What about read data performance?
Yeah, I think, are they asking for read data? Yeah.
Yes, read or read.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a great question. Thanks, Hannah. So when we did talk a lot about that the workload in video, the rule of thumb is typically that the storage will be 90% read in video surveillance, or sorry, 90% write. So we have all this incoming video data, it's being written to the hard disk drive. That's probably 90% of the time. The other 10% is typically analytic systems accessing the information, or for playback of the information. That's about 10% of the time. And just because we're focused on the write and making sure that all the information is written correctly and accurately, it doesn't mean that the read is slower performing. In fact, our read performance on the hard disk drives is actually really strong, really solid. But the drive itself and things that I talked about, like storing video data into our firmware, into our cache, and grouping information together, that's really all designed about the reading, or I'm sorry, the writing. But the read is it actually performs exceptionally well as well. So when you go to playback video footage, or analytic systems are accessing that information, that performance should be really strong.
Great. Another question that we have is, what HDD capacity continues to grow beyond 22 terabytes?
Yeah, so what's next above and beyond 22? And as we mentioned, WD is an industry leader with our WD Purple Pro 22 terabyte hard drive. So beyond there, I can't get into the specifics, but there are plans on the roadmap to move up to higher capacity points. At WD, we use some advanced technology to increase that capacity, and so you will in the future see points moving up in capacity, maybe to the mid or even to the high 20 terabyte in the not too terribly distant future. But the way we do that, we take a lot of that information and we store. We have technologies that store information in flash memory on hard disk drives, and it lets us really store and optimize the disk technology just for the user data. So when you look at hard disk drives, a lot of the information that's being stored and written to that drive, some of it is information that's kind of like GPS data. It tells the file system where that information is on the drive, and that is information that's being stored today on disk. So with the 22 terabyte drive and moving up to higher technologies, higher capacity technologies in the future, we'll continue to store more of that metadata and information, do that in flash, and leave the rest of the spinning media for customer data. So we'll see that continue to grow and increase in the future.
Awesome. All right, I think we have time for about one more question. And it is, where can I purchase the WD Purple surveillance products?
Yeah, great question. And so we are widely available through the distribution channel, through your outlets that you're typically working with for either IT or security surveillance solutions. You'll see WD really throughout the world, distributed very widely through your standard channels.
Great. Well, thank you for presenting all of this today, Mark, and thank you for everyone who was able to join us today. If y'all are interested in learning more about Western Digital and their products, feel free to reach out with Mark His email is right here on the screen. You can also visit their website. And if you'd like to learn more about ESA membership and how it can power your business, feel free to visit our website at esaweb.org. And we'd love to start a conversation. Have a great day, Security Pros.
Thank you.